Hi guys, it's Mary and today I'm filming my March wrap-up. Let's jump straight into it. And I'm gonna go in the order in which I read them, I'm pretty sure, just because I find it easier lately to go that way. So first up we've got Women's Liberation and the African Freedom Struggle by Thomas Sankara. Aside from having a little bit of background information about his political stance, this volume is very short and it contains two speeches that Sankara gave in 1987. That was the year in which he would be later assassinated. Thomas Sankara was the leader of the revolution in Burkina Faso from 1983 to until 1987, and he was such an inspiring man. Aside from doing a lot for Burkina Faso under his government, he abolished female genital mutilation, polygamy, forced marriages. He particularly put a stress on educational programs that he set up. He recognized the threat of AIDS. He prevented famine with agrarian self-sufficiency, and actually under his government, school attendance increased from 6% to 22%, which is a lot. But aside from all of that, his main focus was women's liberation, was the women's liberation movement, and that's precisely what this little volume is about, what his speeches here are about. He believed the revolution could not triumph without the emancipation of women. For how much a man is oppressed, there's always another individual that is going to oppress even more. That is his wife. So gender equality was at the core of his campaign, and he talks about prostitution in relation with marriage and how the two basically are the same thing. What differs is the length of the contract, because it's another form of oppression, and how important it is to recognize this and try and move forward. And this was very interesting to come across. Granted that it could be perceived, reading this now, as I read in many reviews, or in some reviews, how this speech sees things through a male gaze and is very heteronormative, but at the same time, I think given the context, I don't think it could have been, a lot different from what it was. And I just think that he was such a great individual. I think this was, a piece of history worth checking out for sure. The only complaint that I have is the layout of this ebook, because I read this on ebook on Scribd, and the layout was awful. I don't know what happened, but it would break the sentence in weird places. It was just not comfortable to read. So this is my only basically complaint about this. Definitely worth checking out though, definitely worth it. Then I've read The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and I filmed a video review for this one that I hopefully have uploaded before this video that you're watching, but I'm going to leave a link down below to it, where I'm talking about this in a more extensive and deep way, just because I gave this book 3 stars, which is sort of a low rating, especially compared to how much this book is loved here in BookTube, but also compared to my enjoyment of this, because I did enjoy this book a lot, and usually 3-star reads for me are very average books that I enjoyed, but they were forgettable and I would probably get rid of that book. But lately I find myself giving a lot of complex 3-star ratings, and this one was one of them. This follows Richard as he enters his college in New England and decides to be a part of this elite group of students that study Greek. And when he manages to be part of this group, he starts to understand why they are so secluded from the other students, why they are so different. And yeah, there's a murder involved, there's weird stuff going on. It was definitely very interesting, especially given that the premise of the book is the murder itself. It sort of starts with the ending by giving you away what happens basically, and you learn throughout the book how it happened and why. So as I said, it was an enjoyable reading experience. The writing style is great, I really loved it. And I definitely want to check out more by her. But yeah, if you want to know more about my thoughts on this one, then I suggest you watch the review. Then I listened to the audiobook for Hunger by Roxane Gay, and I'm finding myself very content with memoirs on audio. This is basically the only audiobook I don't have problems with, especially when the memoir is narrated by the author, as it is in this case. And this was written in 2017. And actually, you know, Roxane Gay is a pretty popular author, although I had never read anything by her, and I definitely want to check out more after reading this book. This is written in sort of a little essays, I would say, and the chapters are very short, which is something that some people maybe find annoying. I really love short chapters, especially when I feel like I don't have enough time to read. And maybe it's just my perception of time, but when I saw that a chapter was only 2 minutes long, then I would easily, you know, start and listen to it. In her memoir, she explores her relationship with her body and her body image, how she perceives herself, how that changed throughout the years, and how she is perceived by other people as well. There's a very big trigger warning, I would say, for rape and also eating disorders. Roxane was raped when she was gang raped when she was 12, and this event obviously changed her whole life and changed her relationship with her body and with food as well. And this means she has very conflicting emotions towards her body and towards food, but also towards her personality, because they're all, of course, interwoven. It was very heartbreaking to read how this dramatic, really, event warped her perception of reality and also tainted her relationship even with her family and with other people. She is a victim, obviously, but she doesn't play the victim. She's very honest and open about her and about her thoughts. She highlights her own mistakes and faults in relationships and in bad thinking, and she isn't scared to put herself in a bad light. She's very unapologetic because she's very honest, and it doesn't feel presumptuous. I just loved her way of putting herself out there. Her writing style is very poignant. She has a way of conveying her own emotions that is very relatable. Even, you know, even if what happened to her did not happen to me, some things that she says, of course, are ways of thinking that basically all women went through, you know, in a way or another. Sometimes I assume I know a lot of things, especially towards this kind of topics, but I feel like being large, being very big, is not a topic that is discussed enough, especially in relation with feminism as well, and how conflicting it could be when you're not happy with your body image. I think her point of view is very valuable and definitely something that everybody should check out. I really want to read Bad Feminist afterwards, and check out her other, whatever she puts out. I really enjoyed reading this one. Next up we have The Explosive Child by Greene. Didn't you miss my books on parenting? Yes, I really enjoyed this book. It was so useful to me, and you can argue that I'm basically reading the same books, books that talk about the same things, more or less. The same philosophy ties them together, but I feel like even reading about the same ideas but presented differently for different stages, maybe, they're very useful, and I don't feel like I'm always up for a reminder, especially when it comes to parenting, because sometimes you would think things that you forget 5 minutes later because maybe you get angry. So I felt like this one was such a great book, and it was written in 1998, so a long time ago. It was later revised, of course, but I feel like this is still something that is not applied or taken into consideration. The central point of this book is that kids do well if they can, versus the theory that has been popular. The most popular one that everybody thinks of is that kids do well if they want to. And it's, you know, he explains extensively why that is not true and why that is toxic thinking, and it doesn't help anybody, especially, as it says here in the subtitle, easily frustrated, chronically inflexible children. And you know, don't get me wrong, I think raising a child is hard work, whatever the personality or the character of the child is. But some children their behaviors are more difficult than others. And being validated in this book was very helpful, because when you know that you're doing everything, I don't know, correctly, but it's still, passing the term, is not working, then this kind of books sort of really helps you see a different perspective. And here it says, you know, the child doesn't lack motivation, he lacks skill. So some children have some skills, some acquire them later in life, some don't, and they need your help, because if they're not doing well, it's because they can't. Something is getting in their way, and it's your job to help them in that. So it's about recognizing which are the laggings. It's about recognizing which ones are the lagging skills and what problems they cause. And he really, again, stresses on not crumpling all the problems together, but split them so that you can tackle one problem at a time when it arises. And this was because when you have a chronically frustrated child, you feel like everything is the problem. You really have a hard time pinpointing what went wrong, because maybe he wakes up and is already cranky and is crying all the time. And I know, because my child, and now we are, I think, finally seeing the light. He's 2.5 years old, but when he was very, very little, he would just cry for the whole day, and it was so hard for me, because obviously we couldn't really talk, we couldn't really agree on anything, because he didn't speak. But when he started speaking, things started to be better for us. So this tackles collaborative problem solving, and at the core is what I said, children do well if they can. And also something that I always forget is to not have many expectations. When this pattern is very common when you think he understands, he's clever, he knows that this is wrong, so why doesn't he stop? And the answer is because he can't. And I have seen a lot of improvement since reading this book with my relationship with, you know, between me and my child, and I started doing things with this perspective in mind, and it really, really changed. I need to restrain myself from talking too much about this kind of books. If you're interested in this topic, I will leave a link down below to a speech that Dr. Greene gave that is recorded, and it's on YouTube, and yes, you'll see what I'm talking about. As it says here, this book can apply to every sort of child. This is not a method, I would say, only for easily frustrated children. Everybody would benefit from collaborative problem solving and just being listened to, but especially for this kind of children, this is the only way, basically. That's what he's saying, and I agree with that. Definitely recommend this one, especially if you have a sort of difficult child, if you know what I mean. Lastly, I read volume 11 of the manga Kimi wa Pet, or Tramps Like Us, by Yayoi Ogawa. And yes, I will not talk about this book because I finished the manga series this month, so I will talk about it in my wrap-up. But it just follows this young woman as she gets demoted at work. She gets dumped by her boyfriend. She's very down. She goes home from work and she finds in a card box this young boy all beaten up, and she sort of takes him into her house, and he doesn't have a place to stay, and they agree to live together as long as he's there in quality of her pet, basically. That's a very weird premise, I know. It's not an okay manga, I would say. It's a great story. I watched the TV adaptation, well, actually I watched both of them, because there are 2 TV adaptations for this one, which I adore, especially the latest one. Especially the latest one. I wanted to check out the source material, not so good, But yeah, I'll talk more about this in my next wrap-up. That's it for March. I hope you enjoyed. I didn't manage, unfortunately, to get any books read for the Invisible Cities project. I feel very bad about that, even though I said I am participating in it. But it's very overwhelming to me to have 3 countries to read from, and I didn't even check out food or music or movies or anything like that. But yeah, hopefully next month I will be able to, to read something for that project as well. I hope you enjoyed, and please talk to me in the comments as usual, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!